The wind on Arion swept across crimson dunes, gritty with ancient secrets. Marcus moved through it, his dark olive gear blending into the land's angry palette, boots sinking just enough to remind him of his weight. Sand hissed against his visor and lodged in the seams of his gloves. The compact carbine rode at his side, a silent promise of violence, should it come to that. For days he'd stalked the Veyran patrols, always at a distance, marking their paths, their caches, their rituals. His orders were clear. Observe, don't interfere, remain unseen. He liked it that way. Silence was his element, solitude a shield as much as any armor. Now, from the jagged crest of a sun-baked bluff, Marcus peered down on his quarry. 5 Veyrans, sleek as hunting cats, cobalt armor glinting under the late afternoon sun. They moved in formation, silent, efficient, each step practiced and precise. He watched the leaders signal with a subtle flick of the tail, the others responding instantly. He noted their direction, the rhythm of their movements, committing it all to memory. He was ready to slip away, to vanish like a shadow, when a new sound knifed through the wind, a thin, desperate cry, strangled by pain. He froze, every muscle taut. It could be a trap. But then it came again, weaker, urgent. Against his instincts, against every protocol drilled into him, Marcus edged down the slope, boots silent on the stone. The cry drew him to a narrow gully where the air was thick with the metallic scent of blood and something deeper, older, fear. She was crumpled against a rock, half hidden by the shadows. A Veyran girl, her skin a delicate shade of lavender, her cobalt blue hair wild and sticky with blood. Her violet eyes met his, fierce and wounded. She was young, but there was something hardened in her gaze. Her athletic frame was battered, dark armor split at the seams, glistening with injury. A bushy tail, the same blue as her hair, twitched feebly in the dust. Her pointed ears, rimmed in a darker blue, flicked toward him, tracking his every move. He took a cautious step forward. She bared her teeth, lifting a slim, blood-slick blade. The hand holding it trembled, but her resolve didn't falter. Marcus crouched, hands raised, voice low and calm. "Easy. I'm not here to hurt you." She flinched as he drew closer, the blade's point wavering between them. In a fluid motion, Marcus caught her wrist. Not a forceful grip, but enough to stop her from stabbing. She fought weakly, breath ragged, eyes shining with fear and stubbornness. He loosened his hold, letting her feel the choice. "Look," he murmured, nodding to the medkit at his hip. "Let me help." For a long moment she didn't move, violet eyes drilling into his. Then her arms sagged, blade clattering onto the rock beside her. She averted her gaze, jaw clenched in silent defeat. The surrender was small, but it spoke volumes. Marcus worked quickly, mindful of her every flinch. He cut away torn armor, revealing bruised skin and a broken arm bent at a bad angle. She watched him, her expression wary but no longer hostile. He cleaned her wounds, wincing for her as antiseptic foamed and blood mingled with the sand. As he splinted her arm, her breathing slowed, the fight in her body giving way to exhaustion. "You have a name?" he asked softly, binding the last of her wounds. She blinked slowly, words slurring. "What's yours?" "Marcus." She repeated it under her breath, as if testing its weight, and then her eyes fluttered closed. She was asleep before he could say anything more. Night pressed in, the desert's chill already creeping over the dunes. They couldn't stay here, exposed and vulnerable. Marcus sheathed his carbine and, with surprising gentleness, lifted her onto his back. She was lighter than he'd expected, her body limp and trusting in sleep. He trekked through the lengthening shadows, every sense alert for the patrol he'd once been tracking, now a danger to them both. He found the cave he'd scouted days before, a shallow cleft, hidden by a spill of boulders. Inside, the air was cool and still. He lowered her onto his sleeping roll, tucking the edges around her. She stirred, murmuring his name, but didn't wake. Marcus kindled a small fire, its flicker painting her face in shades of orange and gold. He sat close, cleaning his gear, listening to the rhythm of her breathing. Protocol was shattered, but he felt only a fierce, unfamiliar urge to protect her. He lay down with his back to her, weapon within reach, a silent gesture of trust and intent. As the darkness closed in, Marcus stared at the cave's mouth, senses open, heart beating to a new, uncertain rhythm. In that hush, with the desert's breath all around them, a new purpose took root, quiet, resolute, and impossible to ignore. Lyra woke to the scent of warm broth and the low crackle of a fire. Shadows flickered across the stone ceiling above her, but the ache in her body was duller than before. She stirred, the familiar weight of pain pressing against every movement, and her senses sharpened as she remembered where she was. Not in the barracks, not in the hands of Sarek's hunters, but in a cave, alive. Marcus was crouched beside the fire, his olive uniform stained by the dust of the dunes. He glanced up as she moved, eyes keen but gentle. She noticed the bowl in his hands, steam rising from it. He reached for a canteen and poured a thin, savory broth into a battered cup, offering it to her without a word. The gesture was cautious, respectful. Lyra hesitated, then accepted, feeling the heat seep into her cold fingers. She sipped, savoring the taste of salt and spice, and studied the human. She remembered the pain, his careful hands tending her wounds, and, most strikingly, that he had slept with his back exposed to her blade. A dangerous trust, and one she did not take lightly. "My name is Lyra," she said, her voice rough but steady. Her gaze searched his face for a reaction. He nodded, a brief smile tugging at his mouth. "I'm Marcus. You remember much?" "Enough," she replied, clutching the cup to her chest. "You could have left me." "You needed help," he answered simply, sitting back on his heels. The unspoken words hovered between them. It was more than help, more than duty. They ate in silence, the only sound the scrape of spoons against metal and the distant hush of the wind outside. Tension lingered, taut as a drawn wire, but curiosity threaded through it. Lyra felt the urge to explain, to fill the silence with truth, if only to see how he would react. "My wounds," she began, meeting his eyes, "were not from battle. They were from betrayal." The admission tasted bitter. She watched his brow furrow as he listened. "Sarek," she continued, voice tightening. "He's a rival commander. He's always coveted my position. When I refused to execute an unarmed captive, something forbidden by our code, he saw his chance. He called me a traitor, twisted the story for his followers. They ambushed me outside the encampment, left me to die." Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Your own people did this?" His tone was gentle, but there was a hard edge beneath it. She nodded, her lips pressed in a thin line. "Veyron law is clear. We do not kill those who cannot fight." Sarek broke that law, but he's hiding it now. Hiding his crime, erasing anyone who knows the truth. That's why he'll come. Not just for me, for anyone who's seen what happened. Marcus digested this, eyes flickering with calculation. He understood the implications, the danger closing in on them both. Lyra saw the realization settle in his expression, the way his shoulders squared. "You should go," she said quietly, setting down the empty cup. "If you stay, you'll be hunted too. Sarek won't care that you're human." Marcus shook his head, the resolve in his features hardening. "That's not how I do things." Surprise flickered across her face. You don't even know me. He stood, surveying the cave, his gaze sharp and assessing. Doesn't matter. I'm not leaving you here. He moved to the entrance, scanning the rocks and the shadows beyond. We need to reinforce this place. Set up traps, fallback routes. If they come, we'll be ready. Lyra watched as he unpacked coils of wire, small canisters, and lengths of camouflaged netting. His methods were foreign to her. Subtle. Indirect. Where Varen's favored open confrontation and direct engagement, Marcus worked in silence, fingers nimble as he set a tripwire across the cave's mouth, rigged a line of flash charges along the ridge, and concealed escape passages behind loose stones. She followed his movements, intrigued despite herself. You fight like a shadow, she observed, kneeling beside him as he tied off a snare. We Vayrans meet danger head-on. You hide, distract, mislead. He glanced up at her, a half-smile breaking through his seriousness. If you know you can't win a fair fight, you make it unfair. That's what my people taught me. She felt respect growing in her chest, mingling with a strange, fluttering sense of hope. For the first time since her exile, she was not alone. She was not powerless. As dusk pressed deeper into the cave, Marcus outlined the plan, tracing lines in the dust with a stick. They'll come from the east, fast, but not quiet. I'll draw them in, keep them focused on me. When they're exposed, you strike from concealment. Hit hard, vanish before they can regroup. Lyra nodded, her tail flicking in anticipation. You're the blade, Lyra. I'm just the bait, he said, meeting her gaze. His confidence steadied her. Suddenly, her ears swiveled, catching a faint tremor in the air. A sound Marcus had yet to notice. They're close, she whispered, tension thrumming in her voice. 4 of them, Varen hunters. Marcus's expression darkened, but he only squeezed her shoulder, firm, reassuring, before slipping into the shadows above the cave entrance. Lyra drew her blade, her heart pounding in her chest, every sense focused and sharp. The waiting was agony, every second stretched thin, every breath measured. A low footfall, the scrape of armor on stone. The first hunter crept into the mouth of the cave, eyes scanning the darkness. His foot snagged the tripwire. In a split second, the snare whipped around his ankles, hoisting him into the air. He thrashed, hissing, as Lyra crouched lower in her hiding place. 2 more hunters stormed in, blades drawn. They barreled straight into the line of flash charges. Light exploded, searing white and blinding, their cries echoing off the walls. Chaos erupted. Marcus, positioned above, opened fire, controlled bursts pinning them down, forcing them into cover. His aim was deliberate, every shot forcing a choice, every movement calculated to sow confusion. Lyra sprang from her hiding place, blade gleaming in the firelight. She dispatched the first stunned hunter with a swift, silent strike. The second spun, swinging wildly, but she ducked under his guard and drove her blade home. Blood slicked her fingers, hot and immediate, but she did not falter. The remaining pair tried to regroup at the cave's entrance, desperation in their movements. Lyra darted across the rocks, slashing a rope as she passed. A low rumble began, stones shifting, tumbling. The mouth of the cave collapsed in a controlled rock slide, burying the last 2 hunters beneath a cascade of dust and stone. Silence fell, broken only by Lyra's ragged breathing. Marcus descended from his perch, boots crunching on loose gravel. He knelt beside her, reaching out to gently wipe blood from her cheek with the corner of his sleeve. You're hurt, he murmured. Lyra's composure broke. The adrenaline ebbed, leaving her hollow and trembling, not with fear, but with a fierce, wild relief. She sagged against Marcus, shoulders shaking, her face buried against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her steady as the aftershocks of the battle faded. For a moment they stayed like that, bound by survival and something more fragile, trust. Then, practical as ever, Marcus pulled back, brushing a strand of blue hair from her eyes. "We can't stay," he said. "Sarek will send more." Lyra nodded, wiping away the tears she didn't remember shedding. Together, they gathered what supplies they could salvage: weapons, water, rations. Side by side, they slipped from the ruined cave into the deepening twilight, moving with silent purpose. The desert waited, vast and dangerous, but they moved as one, united by necessity and a trust that ran deeper than either had expected. They became shadows across the dunes, moving with a silent, seamless grace born of necessity and growing trust. The world behind them was a tapestry of danger. Sarek's hunters dogged their steps, always close enough to send a chill through the marrow, but never close enough to catch them. Nights bled into days, days into nights, the endless expanse of Arion's desert swallowing their footprints and memories alike. Each moment was a test, of resolve, of resourcefulness, and of the quiet, powerful bond blossoming between two fugitives. Lyra's wounds faded, replaced by new scars and fresh confidence. She ran now with a lithe assurance, her violet eyes sweeping the horizon for threats. Marcus deferred to her senses, relying on her to spot movement long before his own eyes could. In turn, she learned to trust his caution, the way he always seemed to find the safest path, the best vantage, the right moment to move. Together, they survived ambushes, evaded patrols, and shared the small victories of another day alive. As they traveled, the tension that had once thrummed between them shifted. The glances grew longer, the silences more comfortable. Touches lingered, Marcus's steadying hand at her back when they climbed, Lyra's fingers brushing his arm as she pointed out a safe route. Unspoken, a question hovered in the spaces between words. One night, the wind howled colder than any before, sending sand swirling through the air like shards of glass. They found shelter beneath a series of ancient arches, stone carved by centuries of wind into sweeping, elegant curves. The fire Marcus coaxed to life was meager, a flicker against the vast dark. They sat close, shoulders pressed together beneath a blanket, breath clouding in the cold. The silence was thick, but not empty. Lyra watched the flames dance, her tail curled around her knees. Marcus rubbed his hands, then offered one to her, palm up. She placed hers atop it, feeling the roughness of his skin, the warmth he offered freely. She studied his profile, the strong line of his jaw, the tired determination in his eyes, the faintest smile as he caught her gaze. He turned, his voice a low rumble. "You're healing well." She nodded, drawing the blanket tighter around them. "You make it easy to trust," she said, words halting but sincere. He looked surprised for a moment, then pleased. "It goes both ways." Lyra reached out, tracing the shadow of a scar along his cheekbone. "You risked everything for me. Why?" He hesitated, searching for the truth behind his own actions. "It felt right. I couldn't walk away. Not from you." Her breath caught, heart beating loud in her chest. The moment stretched, firelight flickering in her violet eyes. "Marcus," she whispered, his name trembling on her tongue. He looked at her, waiting, giving her space to choose. Unsure of human customs, Lyra fell back on instinct. Veyron instinct, direct and bold. She leaned in, pressing her lips to his, tentative at first, testing, then more certain as he responded. His hand rose to cup her cheek, thumb brushing the edge of her blue ear, sending a shiver down her spine. She melted into him, the kiss deepening, hunger and tenderness twining until the world shrank to the warmth they shared. The blanket slipped away, cold, forgotten as their bodies pressed together. Lyra's hands explored, mapping the lines of his shoulders, the warmth beneath his uniform. Marcus moved with equal reverence, learning the language of her body, the curve of her back, the way her breath caught as he traced the edge of her ear. They found solace in each other, the ache of loneliness replaced by a different ache, one of belonging, of being seen and wanted. Much later, when the fire was embers and exhaustion finally claimed them, they lay tangled together. Marcus stroked her hair, the blue strands soft against his calloused fingers. Lyra listened to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, her tail curled possessively around his thigh. In the hush of the night, words were unnecessary. Their closeness was a quiet certainty, a bond forged in adversity and sealed in trust. Morning crept in, pale and cold. Lyra woke first, studying Marcus as he slept, his features softened by sleep. She smiled to herself, brushing a kiss to his forehead before slipping out of the blanket. He stirred, eyes finding her immediately. "Morning," he murmured, stretching the stiffness from his limbs. She handed him a ration pack, their routine unspoken. As they ate, Marcus checked their supplies, counting out water and food with a practiced eye. The unrelenting reality pressed back in. "We can't keep running," he said quietly, gaze fixed on the horizon. "Sarek won't stop. He'll just keep sending more hunters." Lyra's ears flattened, but she nodded. "He wants me dead. The only way I reclaim my honor is by facing him. But he never leaves his loyalists. I'll never reach him." Marcus's mind was already racing, searching for the flaw in Sarek's armor. "Then we draw him out. Somewhere his numbers don't matter. Make him come to us." Lyra considered this, hope flickering in her eyes. "The Pillar of Accord," she said at last. "It's ancient, sacred. Duels, trials, all witnessed. If he's challenged there, by law he must answer, alone or with only 1 second." Marcus nodded, already piecing together the rest. "But you'll need proof. If we force him into the open without exposing his crime, he'll twist the narrative again." She looked away, frustration burning in her expression. "I have nothing. My word against his. The others who saw, they're dead, or loyal to him." Marcus's lips curved in a sly smile. "Maybe not. My helmet cam's been running since the night I found you. It caught your story, your wounds, everything. If we can get Sarek to admit what he did, to break his code, I'll have it all on record." Lyra's eyes widened. "You kept it running?" "I never turned it off," he said softly. "Just in case we needed the truth." She exhaled, relief and gratitude mingling. "Then we have a chance." They spent the day preparing, moving in tandem as they finalized their plan. Lyra practiced her challenge, her words precise and clear. Marcus checked his gear, ensuring the helmet cam would be ready. They went over contingencies, escape routes, signals. Every touch, every glance spoke of trust and something deeper. Love, fragile and fierce. As dusk painted the arches in crimson and gold, Marcus pressed his forehead to Lyra's. "Whatever happens, I'll be with you." She kissed him again, fierce and certain. "We end this, together." They packed their things, weapons strapped down, nerves taut with anticipation. The Pillar of Accord awaited, a place of judgment older than any grudge or ambition. As they moved out, side by side, the final reckoning loomed ahead. Not just for Lyra, but for both of them. Their fates were intertwined now, every step a promise. Together, they set their plan in motion. The canyons leading to the pillar became their battleground, harsh stone corridors twisting beneath an open sky, shadows deepening with every step. Marcus moved first, slipping along the canyon heights, silent and careful, his body pressed against cold rock. He carried wires and charges, setting tripwires in narrow passes, anchoring explosives in fissures that would bring down walls of stone at a signal. Below, Lyra advanced openly, her blade gleaming, eyes fixed ahead. The wind carried the scent of dust and distant danger. She paused at a fork in the maze, her breath steady. Behind her, the crunch of armored boots echoed. Sarek's guards, fanned out in practiced formation. Sarek himself stalked at their center, his armor flawless, posture radiating arrogance and impatience. He raised a fist, signaling his elite to press forward, eager to finish what he started. Lyra's voice rang out, sharp and taunting. "Looking for me, Sarek? Or are you afraid to face the truth alone?" He snarled, waving his guards ahead. "Bring her to me, and if you see her pet human, kill him." Marcus watched from above, tracking their movements through the scope of his carbine. He waited until the guards entered the bottleneck, then pressed the detonator. The first blast thundered through the canyon, sealing off the rear with a landslide of boulders. Shouts of alarm filled the air as the exit vanished behind a choking cloud of dust. Now isolated, the guards spun, weapons raised. Marcus dropped from the ledge with a predator's efficiency, landing among them before they could regroup. His shots were precise, each burst felling a guard before they could react. Lyra used the chaos, darting forward with Veyron speed, her blade a silver flash as she dispatched another guard. Two more fell to snares Marcus had set, wires snapping tight, yanking them off their feet, leaving them exposed for Lyra to finish. Sarek bellowed in fury, shoving aside his remaining elite. "Useless! I'll do it myself." He stalked forward, drawing a massive blade, his eyes locked on Lyra. The canyon narrowed again. Marcus signaled, two quick flashes of his light. Lyra darted left, luring Sarek's last bodyguards into a rockfall trap. Marcus fired a single shot, striking the release pin. Stones tumbled, crushing one guard and pinning another. The last tried to flee, but Lyra intercepted him, disarming and knocking him cold. The battlefield fell silent but for Sarek's labored breathing. He stood alone in a clearing ringed by the bodies of his fallen followers, the echo of his ambition reduced to rubble and dust. Marcus took position on a ledge above, rifle steady, eyes never leaving Sarek. Lyra stepped forward, blade in hand, posture unyielding. Marcus's presence above was a silent promise. She was not alone. Sarek spat at the ground, sneering up at Marcus. "So you brought your pet, Lyra? How fitting for a traitor, hiding behind a human." Lyra squared her shoulders, voice unwavering. "He is not my pet. He is my partner. He taught me that real strength is protecting, not destroying." She advanced, blade held low but ready. "That's something you'll never understand." Sarek snorted, circling her warily. "Spare me your weakness. You were always too soft. That's why you failed your people." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "I failed no one. You betrayed our code, abandoned your own patrol to die, then tried to silence anyone who would speak the truth." She kept her tone measured, never giving him the satisfaction of seeing her anger. "All for your ambition, for power." Sarek's lips curled in a contemptuous smile. "Ambition?" he said, voice rising as he gestured to the carnage around them. "I did what I had to. Only the strong deserve command. You hesitated, Lyra. You showed mercy to an enemy. You made me look weak, and I could not allow that." From above, Marcus's helmet cam captured every word. He toggled the record light, ensuring it pulsed steady. He kept his weapon trained on Sarek, ready but silent, letting Lyra control the moment. Lyra took a step closer. "You admit it then. Your crimes, your betrayal. Even now you can't help but boast." Sarek's expression twisted with pride. "Let the record show it was I, Sarek, who purged the weak and seized what was rightfully mine. I do not regret it." Marcus's voice cut through the silence, calm and deadly. That's all we need. Sarek looked up, startled as the realization dawned. You recorded this? Lyra's gaze was steel. The truth will be heard by all, Sarek. Your reign ends here. She raised her blade, issuing the ancient challenge. By the code of the Veyran, I call for a duel of judgment. If you have any honor left, face me. Sarek's laughter was bitter. You're a fool, Lyra. I'll kill you and your human both. He lunged, blade flashing in the harsh light. The fight was a blur. Lyra met him head-on, matching Veyran's speed with the tactical discipline she had learned from Marcus. She feinted left, baiting Sarek's anger, then spun away from his wild strike. His fury made him reckless, overcommitting with every blow. Lyra used his momentum, twisting aside, turning his strength against him. She landed a glancing cut to his arm, then another to his thigh. Sarek roared, pressing his assault. But Lyra adapted, weaving in techniques Marcus had taught her. Misdirection, sudden shifts in stance, feints that made Sarek hesitate. He faltered, driven by rage, and Lyra capitalized, kicking his weapon aside and forcing him to his knees. She held her blade at his throat, her breath coming hard and fast. Yield, Sarek, she commanded, voice cold as the canyon wind, or face the consequences of your own making. For a heartbeat, Sarek glared up at her, hatred and humiliation burning in his eyes. But defeat was unmistakable. He let his weapon fall, shoulders slumping in surrender. Lyra stepped back, lowering her blade. I spare your life, not for you, but for our people. Let them judge you by your own words. Marcus slid down from the ledge, landing beside her. Together they bound Sarek's hands, stripping him of weapons and rank insignia. Marcus checked the recording, the evidence glowing green in his visor. He caught Lyra's eye and nodded. She pressed her forehead briefly to Marcus's, the smallest, most private gesture of thanks and relief. Around them, the wind swept away the last traces of battle, leaving only the truth and a future reclaimed. They set out for the pillar, Sarek bound and shamed, evidence in hand. Side by side, Lyra and Marcus walked forward, justice and hope between them, ready to face whatever came next. At the Pillar of Accord, the air shimmered with the promise of judgment. The ancient monolith soared above the gathered Veyrans, its obsidian surface carved with the stories of 1,000 cycles, of honor, betrayal, and the unbreakable bonds of their people. The entire clan had assembled, faces tense and expectant, their voices hushed. At the center of it all stood the Elder, a living legend draped in flowing black and indigo, her presence commanding the silence as much as the pillar itself. Her eyes were sharp as obsidian, ancient yet unclouded, missing nothing. Lyra stood straight-backed before her, no longer the exile who had fled into the night, but a warrior returned, the truth burning within her. Her armor, battered and mended, bore the marks of survival. At her side stood Marcus, human among Veyran, unflinching under the stares of the assembled. His presence was both shield and anchor. At their feet, Sarek knelt in disgrace, wrists bound, his once gleaming armor dirtied by defeat and shame. His head was bowed, jaw clenched in defiance, but there was no strength left in his posture. The Elder's voice rang clear, cutting through the murmurs like a blade. You stand before the pillar, Lyra, exiled by accusation, returned by your own hand. Speak now, so all may hear. Lyra drew a breath, feeling the weight of every eye upon her. She stepped forward, her voice steady, her gaze meeting the Elders and then sweeping across her people. I was cast out by Sarek's words, labeled a traitor for refusing to execute an unarmed captive, as our oldest laws forbid. But the true betrayal was his. Sarek coveted command. When I would not break our code, he branded me a coward and traitor, ambushed me, and left me for dead. He turned my own squad against me, using lies and fear. She let her words hang in the air, watching the ripple of doubt, then outrage, pass through the crowd. Marcus shifted beside her, slipping a hand into his belt pouch and retrieving a slender data chip. With practiced calm, he stepped forward and offered it to the elder. Lyra's voice was softer now, but no less resolute. "We have proof. Sarek's own confession, recorded in the canyons. Let the truth be heard." The elder inclined her head. One of the guards slid the chip into a projector. A moment later, Sarek's voice echoed through the stone amphitheater, every syllable carrying the weight of damning truth. His admission of betrayal, his contempt for the law, his twisted sense of strength. The silence that followed was absolute. Then the elder's anger blazed, cold and final. She stepped down from the dais, stopping before Sarek. "You have broken our oldest laws. You have turned brother against sister, defiled the code that binds us. You are exiled, Sarek. You will wander the wastes, nameless, stripped of all you once claimed." Sarek snarled, but the guards did not hesitate. They seized him beneath the arms, dragging him away. He thrashed once, twice, but there was no strength left in his protest. The crowd parted, some turning their backs, others watching with grim satisfaction as the traitor was taken from their midst. The elder returned to the center, her gaze softening as she regarded Lyra. "You have suffered injustice, yet you return with proof and with honor. The wounds you carry, seen and unseen, are the price of your courage. I offer you restoration, your command, your place among us, your honor returned." Lyra looked past the elder, taking in the faces of those she had once called friends, rivals, kin. Their expressions were a tapestry of hope, relief, pride, and some regret. She felt the ache of belonging, the promise of what might be. But her gaze drifted to Marcus, who watched her not with expectation, but with unwavering support. His presence had changed everything, her understanding of loyalty, of strength, of love. She reached for his hand, their fingers entwining. She held the elder's gaze, her decision clear in her voice. "Thank you, elder, for your words and for justice. But my path has changed. I have found my place, not in command, but in truth, and with him." She looked at Marcus, her eyes shining with certainty. "He risked everything for me, taught me that real strength is not in domination, but in protection, in compassion." A murmur swept through the crowd, some startled, some approving, some uncertain. The elder studied their joined hands, reading the story written there. For a long moment, the only sound was the sigh of the wind around the pillar. Then the elder inclined her head, a gesture of rare acceptance. "The code teaches us that strength takes many forms. Go with our blessing, Lyra. Let your new path honor what you have learned." Lyra bowed, the gesture one of gratitude and farewell. She turned to the clan, her voice steady. "Remember this day. Let our laws guide you, not fear or ambition. Judge with wisdom, not hatred." Marcus squeezed her hand, pride and relief shining in his eyes. The crowd parted, making way for them, and Lyra and Marcus walked side by side from the pillar of accord. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the stones, the sky awash in crimson and gold. They did not look back. Lyra's heart was full, not with loss, but with the promise of something new. She glanced at Marcus, their fingers still entwined, and smiled. As the sun set, they stepped into the unknown together, leaving her old life behind and forging a future side by side. They walked the salt flats, their shadows stretching out behind them, long and dark against the pale, endless expanse. The last rays of the sun caught on Lyra's cobalt hair, turning it molten, while Marcus's silhouette merged with hers in the orange light. Behind them, scattered on the edge of the flats, the Varen watched in silence. Some stood with arms folded, faces unreadable. Others rested their hands on the shoulders of children or friends, uncertain but unable to look away. Lyra's choice, the way she walked forward, fingers entwined with a human's, rippled through their traditions like a stone cast in still water, the echoes sure to last for generations. No one spoke. The only sounds were the crunch of boots on brittle salt and the distant hush of the wind. Yet in the silence, a message traveled, one stronger than any proclamation. Lyra and Marcus were not just leaving the pillar behind, they were setting a new course, one that would challenge all that had come before. Lyra leaned into Marcus as they walked, her head fitting perfectly beneath his chin, his arm draped protectively over her shoulders. He pulled her a little closer when the chill set in, and she pressed into his warmth without hesitation. The comfort between them was easy now, earned in blood and forged in quiet moments. When she laughed softly at something he whispered, her voice low and musical, for his ears alone, the last vestiges of fear seemed to slip away. "Are you all right?" Marcus murmured, his thumb brushing gentle circles on her arm. She looked up at him, violet eyes bright in the dusk. "Better than all right," she replied. "I thought I would lose myself when I left my people. But with you, I feel more myself than ever." He smiled, the expression softening the hard lines of his face. "You're not lost, Lyra. You're just more." She laughed, a quiet, genuine sound that made him smile in turn. The world around them was vast and uncertain, but the small, warm space they created together felt unbreakable. As night settled, they found a hollow in the flats where the salt crust was broken by low, wind-carved stones. Marcus built a fire with practiced hands, the flicker of flame a small defiance against the wide, indifferent dark. Lyra unpacked their rations, slicing dried fruit and bread with her blade, still stained from the last battle, but now at peace in her hands. They shared the meal, knees touching, faces illuminated by firelight. The memory of violence faded, replaced by the gentle rhythm of shared stories. Marcus recounted tales of earth, green forests, falling rain, the strange freedom of childhood summers. Lyra listened, fascinated, her tail flicking with curiosity. She countered with stories of her youth, daring races across the dunes, the night she first climbed the pillar to watch the moon's rise, the lessons of the Varen code she once thought absolute. "I used to believe our laws were unbreakable," she admitted, her gaze on the fire. "But they were only words. What matters is the heart behind them." Marcus took her hand, squeezing it. "You changed them, Lyra. You showed them, and me, what real strength looks like." She smiled, pressing her forehead to his in the Varen gesture of affection. Marcus stilled, then mirrored the gesture, closing his eyes as their breaths mingled. The intimacy was deeper than a kiss, a silent promise that needed no translation. He pulled back, brushing a strand of cobalt hair behind her ear. "Where to now?" he asked, voice gentle but edged with hope. Lyra glanced up, the firelight dancing in her eyes. "Anywhere," she answered, her voice trembling with certainty. "As long as we're together." He laughed, low and relieved, and drew her in for a long, gentle kiss beneath the stars. The world might have been harsh, the path ahead unknown, but here, in this moment, they were no longer just survivors. They were partners, lovers, equals, something forged beyond the simple labels of Varen or human. The night grew cold, but they pressed close, sharing stories and dreams until fatigue pulled them down. Marcus tucked the blanket around Lyra, his arms a stronger barrier than any wall. She slept with her head on his chest, tail curled around his waist, the steady drum of his heart grounding her in this new reality. At dawn, the salt flats stretched pale and luminous, blurring the boundary between earth and sky. They rose together, packing their few belongings with the practiced efficiency of those who had learned to carry only what mattered. Lyra looked back once, catching sight of her people on the horizon, watching, wondering, perhaps even hoping. "Do you think they'll ever understand?" Marcus asked, following her gaze. She considered, then nodded. "Maybe not now, but someday. They'll see that strength isn't in walls or rules. It's in the choices we make. In love, even when it's unexpected." He smiled, slinging his pack over his shoulder. "Let's give them something to talk about then." She grinned, looping her arm through his. They set off across the salt, footprints side by side, their pace steady and unhurried. Every step was a defiance of the odds, an embrace of possibility. Lyra was no longer just Veyran, and Marcus no longer just human. Each had been transformed by the other, by compassion, courage, and the willingness to choose love over fear. The wind picked up behind them, carrying the memory of their journey across the plains. Where once it might have sounded like a threat, now it was a song, a promise of freedom, of future days yet unwritten. They vanished into the wilds of Arion, two shadows joined as one, the salt flats fading behind them as the world opened wide. And as they walked on, the horizon shimmered with hope, their future built together, step by step, into the unknown.